Hello everyone, hope you're doing well. Today we're back in War Thunder and it's time to talk about another vehicle which is coming in Operation Heat. Today it's time to have a look at the BT-7 F-32. This is a light rank 2 Soviet tank which you will get as a premium as the first vehicle which you can unlock for the ground vehicle marks of distinction in the Operation Heat event. I believe you need to get 5 of the marks of distinction in order to be able to get this vehicle. Now, the BT-7 F-32 is an interesting conglomeration of two ideas. So the first one being the BT-7, which we already have in game. It's a low-tier machine which has access to the 45mm anti-tank gun, which is incredibly powerful at its tier, mainly because of its wonderful speed and also its ability to be able to get off a lot of shots in very quick succession after that. It also is good on pretty much every single terrain which you can find it in game, therefore it has a really nice platform to give new players a very fun experience. The other factor is a 76mm in the form of the F-32. Now the F-32 is present at least in 2 vehicles in the game, the KV-1E and also the German KV-1B. Both are premium vehicles and both are very good at what they do. The F-32 gun is the predecessor to some of the early T-34 guns that you see in the game, but it's still very powerful with its H.E.A.T rounds, H.E shrapnel and also smoke rounds on the KV-1E, but unfortunately the KV-1B doesn't get them. The H.E rounds, the one which you should use since there are 2 of them. The first one is got a little bit less pen, the second one has a bit more. It's around about 86mm of penetration at max and is easily good enough to penetrate pretty much anything you're going to fight, and also has the explosive mass inside to create a lot of shrapnel and do a ton of damage. So you are coupling the idea of the BT cavalry tank, which is an incredibly fast little machine, with a very powerful gun at a BR of around about 3.0. This, to me, is a great mix of 2 ideas, and also with the addition of 3 machine guns, 1 on the booty of the turret, 1 in the coaxial position, and 1 on a top mount, is just adding more to this really interesting and, well, fun vehicle. In War Thunder generally, one of the ideas that has been pushed a lot of this year is fast and powerful. So what I mean by that is vehicles which have a lot of acceleration, a lot of speed, but also they have quite decent penetrating and good guns. The Orbital, which is the second Operation Heat vehicle for the ground, also shows this. It has a very good gun, very good fire rate, but the main thing is its speed and stability of its gun, which is going to be the key factor. The BT-7 at lower tiers is going to be very much the same, apart from the stabilization isn't as good because, well, it doesn't have a stabilizer, and also it seems like the elevation on the gun is incredibly slow, so you got to watch out for that. A little bit of history about the BT-7. So in or pre-World War II, basically, the Soviets had created the BT-5, the cavalry tank, which led into the BT-7 light or cavalry tank. This was mainly used, or mainly supposed to be used, as an infantry support offensive vehicle. It was supposed to go alongside the infantry, along with them, create breaches in the line, whether it's taking out infantry or tanks and, you know, pushing through with everybody else in tow. It was an incredibly successful design using the Christie suspension, and because of this, the Soviets wanted to use it for other areas of the battlefield. So they decided the one little downside that the BT-7 had was the 45mm. Even though the 45mm at the time was good enough to deal with pretty much anything that was thrown at it when it came to armor-wise, apart from some Soviet vehicles, funny enough, the issue was against foundations, against defenses, against gun emplacements. It wasn't cutting it. So instead of instead of trying to develop the 45 more, they just went for a straight upgrade in the form of the short-barreled 76, which you find on the T-26-4 and also the T-28 vehicles in game. The gun itself, known as the KT-28, is a short-barreled howitzer which would have mainly used H.E. and also used stuff such as even heat rounds at some points in the war. So overall, a gun which was completely designed as an infantry support gun to take out mainly enemy foundations and enemy positions. The turret was also modified from the standard BT-1 to which was much more like the T-26-4 turret, but instead it was slightly larger, which was itself based off the T-28 turret. And overall, they tried many different guns on it and settled, as I said, on the gun that we have on the T-28, the first T-28, the KT-28, as the gun to fit on this machine. Now, where does the F-32 come into this? Well, it was a prototype on top of this style of vehicle. The F-32 was a push forward to try and create a even larger gun for this machine. Obviously the same caliber, but more on the tank killing idea, since it had the longer barrel and everything along with it. The main issues that the Soviets ran into when it came to the longer barrel and also the different gun, the F-32 and the L-11, which they tried to fit in the turrets, was space. It definitely didn't fit as well as the H.E.A.T launcher, so therefore they decided to mainly stick with the BT-7 artillery piece, which had, as I said, the KT-28. So they made around 150 of these, and the prototype of that, which you see, is of course the BT-7 F-32. They made around 10 of these, so not a ton of them, which is enough to be there and to be noticed, which is great. You know, it's nice to see that we have it in the game. It also shows that there are some others that we could get into the game as well. Obviously the one pre-mentioned and the L-11 one, even though the L-11 version kind of had a few issues. The gun didn't really fit in the turret. I mean, to be honest, when we have a look at the F-32 version, you know, it's definitely a tight squeeze in there, but at least it fits. The L-11 obviously not so much, and of course the BT-42, the Finnish howitzer machine, which a lot of people have wanted in the game, but there's definitely conversations and debates on which tech tree to put it in at this moment in time. So that's a little bit of history about it. In gameplay terms, I think it'll be very similar in playstyle to a lot of these other premium vehicles or gift vehicles that we have at low tiers. The SDKFC 2344 comes to mind, the Boarhound as well, a lot of the armored cars that we saw last year and a few years ago. The BT-7 to me is the Soviet counter to them. The SDKFC 2344 is incredibly fast around the place, incredibly maneuverable, and has a really nice gun. It's limited in the fact that it doesn't have a turret. The BT-7, incredibly fast, does have a turret. Gun is slightly worse and maybe a little bit less stable, so you can see how they are counterparts there. The Boarhound as well, it's a chunker, so therefore it's easier to hit than something like the BT, but it doesn't have as much speed as the BT, and once again the tracks on the BT make it a hell of a lot nicer to use in-game than the actual wheels, because one of the problems with armored cars that they have in-game is whenever they go into rough terrain, you know, whenever they go into snow or sand or heavy mud, they struggle. It's a bit of a struggle snuggle to get through those different conditions, where the BT-7 just flies through them. The other thing as well is the driver on the BT series of vehicles has always been annoying to me, and the reason is because he constantly oversteers. It doesn't matter how good your crew is, it seems, for the driver, he just oversteers, you know, as he goes. And this is something that would be nice if it was ever changed, because I know, you know, a lot of the time you would oversteer in vehicles, but if I have a 100% driver with tank driving at full, he shouldn't be oversteering every time he moves. The other thing as well, when it comes down to it, is I believe there are going to be two ways that this machine's going to be played, kind of like old Locust style, because remember, this vehicle is coming in at rank 2, around about the 3 OBR, and it's going to have scouting, so you can use it as a very aggressive scout, capturing a point, staying around it, scouting, trying to pop people in the sides if you decide to up tier it. Another way of seeing it is, since it gets the bonus of discounts for aircraft SP, you can charge a point, you know, get it captured, run into the enemy, get killed, get in a plane, and try and conquer the game from there. You can try and take over the game from the back of a pilot seat. So there are many different areas where you can use this thing to your advantage, and since the Soviets have had a few vehicles like this in the past, you know, the T-50 always comes to mind, and of course the early or the other BTs as well, the 7 and the 5. I can definitely see this fitting in really well into a lineup with either T-34s or KVs. There is always a debate whether it should be allowed vehicles going into up tiers. You know, if you have a 3.0 vehicle, should you be allowed to take it into a 6.0 match? They've limited it in naval, so this can't be the case when it comes to aircraft. But the other thing as well is it, you know, is it okay, is it not? It doesn't matter because of the fact that in the game now you can do it. So you're not just going to see this thing at its BR, you're going to see it in a lot of high tiers, and it's going to be used as an aggressive scout which flies about the place. And to me that sounds really fun. It means that positioning is going to count a lot, it means that stuff such as one-on-one capabilities is not going to be as emphasized as much because, well, at the end of the day you can just scout and wait for your, you know, units to come in. It doesn't have a lot of armor though, so remember that. Once you hit, and this thing also has hull break, so you will die to hull break at the end of the day, so just, you know, be careful of that. So you're getting a really fast vehicle, a really good gun at its BR, which has scouting and, you know, unfortunately it doesn't have a lot of armor, but it has all the other factors. The only issue is a little bit of bad gun handling. This is pretty much my wet dream when it comes to War Thunder. I'm very much looking forward to this vehicle, and I can't wait to slot it in to my Soviet lineups. I hope you all have a wonderful day, and I'll see you next time. I'd just like to thank Ambrosius McClellan, B. Young, Blackie, Daniel Stanton, John Ryman, Martinez, Moxie, Alobralo, Super Cacti, Grisvolk, Elove Goat, and Seductive Trash Can for supporting the channel.